Before I share this story from years ago when I worked as a social worker for home health and hospice patients through an agency in Northern California, please note that the patients' and families' names have been changed, along with some details, to protect their privacy. A hospice story. Almost heaven. Corky resembled a chow, but only weighed about 13 pounds. His fur was a light rust-colored shade. He had a large mane around his face, with the tips of his fur being white. He had one lower canine that sat outside his mouth, curling up in front of his upper lip, giving him a constant expression that made him look as if he were solving a math problem in his head. I said, "Hey there, silly. Come over here, puppy." Joe corrected me. He said, "He's not a puppy. He's almost 14 years old." Corky looked toward the door leading to a fenced backyard. The back door was always left open. He sauntered around the corner and out the door, never making a sound. Joe wore a hospital gown and was slightly inclined in a hospital bed in the family room. One arm rested behind his balding head, propping it up a bit so he could see me better. An IV tube hung from that arm, connected to a bag of antibiotics hanging from a silver pole beside the bed. Joe had been hospitalized with sepsis and an infection in that arm. The arm was swollen and red, and his hand wouldn't grip anything. Joe told me a surgeon recommended surgery on the arm. He said, "Like hell I was. I told those good-for-nothings I was going home." And here he was. I was his medical social worker from the home health team. I knew the day I met Joe he was dying. The antibiotics were buying time. Corky, it's Letty's dog. He and I don't have too much to do with each other, Joe said. Letty, a younger Latina woman than Joe, was his housemate, friend, and part-time caregiver. She worked as an administrative assistant, was gone during the workday, and cared for Joe when she was home. Joe kept going. Corky used to bark when he was outside. He could go for hours, loud. He would never stop no matter what I did. The neighbors were getting upset, and finally one started sending a petition around complaining about the noise. When I told Letty, she sat Corky down on her lap, shook her finger in his face, and said, "Corky, you have to stop barking. It's going to get us in trouble. That's it. Now you hear me, no more barking." Joe paused, scratched his head, and said, "You know, the son of a gun never barked again. It's the darndest thing. Can you hand me my juice?" The assigned nurse, Barbara, was brassy and somewhat judgmental, and she kept mentioning every time I saw her that she was retiring soon. Her patients adored her. She could swear like a sailor and did so with impressive enthusiasm. She was about to visit Joe for the first time, so I gave her this helpful advice. "Don't be shy." Not much chance of this, I thought. "I recommend swearing several times in the first 5 minutes, so Joe knows you speak his language." Joe lived in a diverse neighborhood of white and Hispanic working-class residents near Stanford. The area was gradually gentrifying, pushing residents like Joe out of their homes. Joe's house was small. Outside, the yellow paint was peeling after many years without upkeep. The front yard was overgrown with climbing roses, bright red and thriving, while Joe was fading. I visited Joe about 6 or 7 times over the next several months. He had a private caregiver who was there occasionally, but often when I arrived, Joe was lying in his bed alone, watching TV. I would come in through the open back door, and Joe's face would light up. He'd say my name like in the sitcom Cheers, drawing it out long. "Greg!" I would pull up a chair, and we would chat. I learned that Joe was an electrician during his working years, and he told me his wife died in a nursing home a long time ago. He vowed he would never live in one. "They'll have to carry me out of here." Joe was Catholic, but stopped going to church after his wife died. He had an estranged son in Nevada whom he rarely saw. Like many men of his generation, he struggled to express his feelings or inner life easily, and he was not particularly insightful. However, he showed simple wisdom born of age and experience, and he didn't like to sugarcoat anything. He did his best to tell me what he thought I wanted to hear. Mostly, Joe just enjoyed my company. Sometimes Joe shared that he wasn't sure if he would get better. Better enough, that is, to get out of bed and go fishing. He reported increasing pain. I discussed with him the possibility of transitioning to hospice, focusing on keeping him comfortable while he lived out the rest of his days at home, no matter how long that might be. One visit, somewhat surprisingly, Joe said, "I'm afraid. I will walk with you the whole way. I don't want pain. Choosing hospice will allow us to manage your pain better." He closed his eyes for a time. Letty, who was present this day, said, "Joe, I think it's best for you. Hospice." His eyes opened, and he said, wearing a frightened half smile, "Well, if Letty says it's what I should do, there's no arguing. I haven't won an argument with her in 17 years. The chaplain and I made a joint visit shortly after Joe chose hospice. Joe liked Claire, not because he wanted spiritual care, but because she was kind. He told me privately, "She's not too hard to look at either." Claire sat on a folding chair on one side of the bed, and I sat on the other. Joe was happy to have our attention, and we all knew his time was running out. Joe suddenly quieted down. His gaze drifted for a few moments before he said, "You know, I've been having this dream. Every night the same dream." "Uh-huh," I said, curious. "Tell us about it." "Sometimes our dreams carry an important message. In the dream, I get out of bed and I walk to a staircase. It's long. I climb to the top, where there's a brightly lit bedroom. Then I lie down and I go to sleep. I have this dream every night. What do you think it means?" "Joe, sometimes the message in our dreams is hidden a bit because it's too unsettling to reveal fully. What do you think ascending a flight of stairs and going to bed symbolizes?" Joe was silent for a few beats. Then his brow furrowed and he almost shouted, "Damn good thing I haven't been dreaming about going down in the basement." Letty, Joe's son, and I sat in the family room. The hospital bed was made, but empty. Corky and his tooth rested at Letty's feet. Letty told stories about an irascible older man while she clutched a tightly balled, tattered tissue in her hand. Joe's son said very little, only sharing one fishing story from years ago. I sat quietly, wondering if Joe's dream had come true. Postscript. This story about my experience with Joe always makes me smile whenever I read it. Though there are threads of sadness, loneliness, and fear in it, there is also heart, compassion, and sweetness. Dying has many aspects, and the difficult parts are often the most noticeable. Regardless of our role in the dying process, there are moments of peace, intimacy, and love that we can share when we stay mindful.